established in 1790, which made them the fifth and sixth oldest black churches in the entire United States. And those are churches that are still in existence. Pleasant Green, which is now in West Maxwell, and the First African Baptist, which is down this way, I believe, on the corner of Short and DeWeese. At one time, about 1850, the First African Baptist was the largest church in Kentucky, black or white. It was pastored by a man named Landon Farrell, who was a free black. And they had 1,800 members in 1850, largest church in the state. Of course, for people who are interested in horses, and that's a large part of the tourism, we have the horse park north between here and Georgetown, which depicts the entire history of the horse. We have many horse farms. You can go in any direction and see horse farms, some of which are open to the public. We have Keeneland Racetrack, which is really, I think, unique among racetracks in America. For the trotting fans, there's Red Mile here within the city. This area has always been very steeped in racing. In fact, the original racetrack in Lexington was down Broadway, which at that time was just a hardened piece of earth which had been trampled down by the buffaloes going back and forth, the old buffalo trace between here and the Salt Licks up at Maysville, near Maysville. And very shortly after settlement, they were having horse races on that course. The Ashland, of course, Henry Clay's home, which doesn't look today as it originally did. It was rebuilt in the 1850s after Clay died, but that's a major tourist attraction. And I'm sure there are many others which I slip my mind now, but those are some of them. I think they're worth seeing. For those who are of a more modern bent, athletics, very rich in tradition, of course. Rupp Arena right down the way here, Memorial Coliseum out on the university campus where some of the great Adolph Rupp teams played. And for those who like the new things, we have those too, with the new festival market here and Triangle Park and the Victorian Square shops, which are new but which are in an old preserved block of buildings, which makes it somewhat unique and interesting. This is the fifth courthouse of Fayette County, the fourth one on this exact same site. Now the first courthouse was constructed in 1782. It was a two-story log structure which sat at the corner of Broadway and Main. There's some discrepancy. Some sources say it was at the northwest corner, some say at the northeast corner. But at any rate, it was in that general area. By 1888, however, the county had grown to the point where they needed a bigger courthouse, and they moved to the present site, and a two-story stone building was erected. I've forgotten the exact dates, but that did not last for a great many years until it was replaced by a three-story brick structure. I believe about 1806 is when that courthouse was built. That was the third one. That remained until the 1880s. And then it was replaced by a larger stone structure, which did not look a great deal unlike the one we have today. That courthouse, the fourth one, lasted only 12 or 13 years. It was destroyed by fire. One of the custodians was climbing up to the belfry to wind the clock and dropped a match or a candle or something, and the courthouse, much of it was made of wood, and it burned. A new courthouse then was constructed from 1898 to 1900. And in 1900, this courthouse, the fifth one, was opened. It was designed by architects from Cleveland, Ohio, Lehman and Schmidt. It was built by a couple of local builders, a man named Albert Howard and another named George Clark. And when it opened in 1900, it was considered certainly the most magnificent structure in the state, and some people like to believe in the entire country. It was built at a cost of a little more than $250,000, and that was the late 1800s, 1900. It had the interior was absolutely magnificent, we're told. And there are descriptions of it which exist. Unfortunately, in the 1960s, it was necessary to remodel the courthouse to make the space more efficient, to add more offices, and much of the space inside the courthouse, which made it such an imposing structure, was lost. The Y-shaped staircases which went to the upper floors with marble steps, the ornate railings. There was a rotunda in it originally which was 105 feet tall, almost went to the top of the building. All of that was closed off in the remodeling, so as a result we get a courthouse today which looks very similar on the exterior, but on the interior in no way resembles what we once had.
Frankfort, the county seat of Franklin County. Franklin County population, 43,888. Area square miles, 212. Rank 95th. Franklin County is located in the 6th Congressional District and is the capital of our state government.
We're standing across the street from the Franklin County Courthouse. Frankfort is the county seat. And to my right, we have a gentleman whose name is John Gray. Mr. Gray, what can you tell us about the formation of Franklin County?
Well, Franklin County was formed in 1794 and was named for Benjamin Franklin. The city of Frankfort had been formed in 1786, so the county was actually formed afterwards. And behind us is the first courthouse of Franklin County. It was built by, or designed by, an architect named Gideon Skyark, who is a renowned Greek revivalist architect. He also did the old Capitol.
What can you tell us about the courthouse itself?
Well, the courthouse was built, like I said, in 1830, and the style is Greek Revival architecture, and it was one of the first examples of Greek Revival architecture west of the Alleghenies, and it's one of the oldest courthouses in Kentucky. And several counties had their courthouses burned during the Civil War, but Frankfort's was not. Even though Frankfort was occupied by the Confederates, it was the only state capital outside of the Deep South to be occupied by Confederate forces.
Okay. You know, just driving through town here, you see a lot of historical markers and yards, so obviously there's a lot of history here. What else can you tell us that you could share with us?
Well, I guess most people know that Daniel Boone is buried here in Frankfort Cemetery. Frankfort, because it is a state capital, is associated with state government, and all of the governors from the various parts of the states have resided here in Frankfort, and many of their houses are still here. Frankfort is rich in architecture, not only residential architecture, but commercial architecture too. The downtown here is on the historic register of National Register of Historic Places, and has many very interesting buildings that date back to before the 1800s.
Gosh. Let me ask you this question for those who may not know. Why was Frankfort chosen to be the capital city in Kentucky?
Well, Frankfort was chosen to be the capital city actually as sort of a compromise. Louisville and Lexington were the two of the cities that were vying for the state capital, and I think the legislature sort of decided on Frankfort partly as a compromise, and partly because Frankfurt decided, the merchants of Frankfurt and the business people of Frankfurt made the legislature an offer as far as land and materials to build the Capitol building that sort of won the day, but more than anything else it was probably just a compromise choice. The major industries in Frankfurt, there are several distilleries. Frankfurt has always been a center of distilleries. It suffered some during the Depression, but several of the distilleries are still in operation. Frankfurt has an industrial park, but it's mostly small industries, and I guess Frankfurt's biggest industry probably is state government.
Okay. What about farming, horsing?
Well, Frankfurt does have
the county.
Or Franklin County does have a very wide agricultural base. We don't have the large horse farms that they do in Woodford County and Scott County, not Scott, that they have in Fayette County, but Frankfurt is primarily a tobacco, cattle, corn kind of a agricultural base.
Okay.
Well, when people come to Franklin County, I think that they will want to visit Frankfurt because it is the state capital, and they'll be able to see the new Capitol building, the governor's mansion, the old Capitol building, the courthouse, the historic district down here where we are today. And also Frankfurt has a residential area that's called the Corner and Celebrities that is 2 blocks from where we stand, that's very rich in residential architecture that people would find very interesting.
Cynthiana, the county seat of Harrison County. Harrison County population, 15,667. Area square miles, 310. Rank, 59th. Harrison County is located in the 6th Congressional District.
We're standing across the street from the Harrison County Courthouse. County seat is Cynthiana, Kentucky. To my left, we have Mr. Paul Lau. Mr. Lau, what can you tell us about the formation of Harrison County?
Well, it was a part of Virginia, originally called Fayette County, and then this part became Bourbon County, and eventually became Harrison County. It was settled in 1775, and those people were driven out by the Indians. The next year they came back and made a settlement, and they were never driven out after that. And that was the start of the settlement of this area of Kentucky. And it was Captain Ruddles. They were, the fort was captured and massacred in 1780. They came back in 1781 and 82, new groups, and they formed quite a strong county. Cynthiana was formed in 1793. They had their first court in 1795, and shortly after that, the county was formed. The first sheriff was one of the first people who was in Kentucky, John Hingston, and he was the first sheriff of the county. And many of the old names that are here now are still from the same people. They originally came from Pennsylvania and from North Carolina. Now my people came from Pennsylvania to North Carolina and then on into Kentucky. They were contemporaries of Boone. They lived next to Boone, Daniel Boone's place in Pennsylvania and in North Carolina, and then came here and later spread to the other states. We have many of the original people still represented here. It's always been a